Please welcome DaleIhry.
Thanks, Dan. I started at Corn in November of 2015, and I've got about 16, 17 months in, and I've used the new old guy, old new guy trick for so long. I'm still learning a lot. My national corn execs finally said enough of the new old guy story. So I do have a couple of my bosses here as well, Jeff Anger and Larry Hoffman. You're sitting up front. Thanks for coming. And Kevin Skunas. Kevin, if you could stand. We're very proud of Kevin. He is our first vice president of National Corn. He'll be president of National Corn in October. We're excited to work with Kevin on the 2018 Farm Bill with National Corn. And you know, my days at FSA, I remember working on the Farm Bill in Washington, D.C. It seemed like when the corn guys came to town, the USDA guys kind of scurried around. Not Neil, that you don't have the stroke either from wheat, but so I'm happy to work with the corn guys here in North Dakota nationally. Excuse my cold. So I've been asked to talk about what works, what doesn't work, what kind of changes would our corn folks desire to see. But first we need to brag about our corn crop in 2016. Back in 1992, there were only 3,300 corn farmers in the state. You average 62 bushels an acre. And in 2016, we had 3.3 million acres, which is the third highest acreage, 500 million bushels, the first time we went over 500,000 bushels in North Dakota. I think, Jeff, you called that about midsummer last year that we're going to get there. And more importantly, we hit a record yield of 158 bushels an acre. What a tremendous job by our corn farmers in North Dakota, the genetics, the practices, and of course, Mother Nature. Where's the corn grown in the state? It's going west and north. Emmons County, North Dakota, just south, and a little east of Bismarck is a top 10 corn acreage county the last couple years, according to the NASA data from my friend Darren here. And so we're hoping to get as many acres in 2017 here. The planting projection showed 3 million acres of corn that will go in this spring. Of course, if we have an early spring and you guys get planting, whether it's wheat in the drill or corn in the drill, I think you like to keep planting. We hope that happens here shortly. That's a yield and production trend line. I already mentioned that. A tremendous growth of yield from 2015 to 2016 for North Dakota in the production. Crop value, this is DaleIhry's math, not from Darren or anybody with a good abacus, but if you take 3.2 million acres of harvested acreage and 158 bushels and $2.80, and all of you guys sold for more than that, right? Frame, you wouldn't have any customers, right? We would get a value of $1.46 billion. And we're great friends with our ethanol producers, and Dina Weezy is here. 51% of the corn in North Dakota in 2015 was grinded into ethanol and DDGs. 465 million gallons of ethanol, 1.3 million tons of DDGs, and 5 ethanol plants. And based on a document I think Dina prepared not too long ago, the ethanol business in North Dakota goes about $625 million annually. So the two together gets us over $2 billion. Neil and Nancy were trying to catch up to wheat and soybeans on value in the state. So the 2014 Farm Bill, you guys gave up $4 billion annually in direct payments, and it was $200 million in North Dakota to get the ARC and PLC program. You were allowed to do base and yield updates for the first time since 2002 or 1986, depending on when you started farming in the last 30 years. The program, as authorized by Congress, gave you 3 program options: price loss, ARC County, and ARC individual. My program that I did a lot of writing on in Washington, D.C. was ARC individual, and to tell you how popular that program was, only 900 farms out of 65,000 farms in North Dakota enrolled in the program. Most everybody else took a switch up between ARC County and PLC on a crop-by-crop or farm-by-farm decision. One of the negatives, as I trained for FSA around the nation in North Dakota in 2014 and 15, a lot of it with our good friends from NDSU, and Andy is in the crowd. You guys did a whale of a job training on that program. You know, you had to make a lock of 5 years. You had to make a decision for a 5-year period of time what program you're going to go into. And again, as Roger mentioned, that's a budgetary issue. One issue that we'd like to take another crack at in this next farm bill. Our cotton friends, and Roger mentioned this, there's a new movement that Congress may consider making cotton a new base crop, coming up with a cotton oilseed program. In the 2014 Farm Bill, 12 million acres of cotton base became generic base. Now, they didn't leave the farm. They stayed on a farm with 1,000 acres of cotton base, for example, became generic, and the way that program works, every program crop you plant takes some of those base acres with it. So it's really not a horrible program. In fact, I told some of my FSA people back over time and some congressional folks, if you had to write a program, you might not mind a generic base program where you got coverage for revenue and price based on what you plant. But what we're hearing, and Roger addressed this a bit, there's a potential change coming whereby Congress would implement a cotton oilseed program fitting it under the statute of other minor oilseeds as determined by the Secretary. They'd get a reference price, and most of the guys are going to PLC, and some estimates are about 5 to 7 cents a PLC payment per pound of cotton. That's 600 pounds an acre. So and a $1 billion a year program. The positives, as Roger mentioned, that we're hearing from National Corn and the congressional offices is that even though it might score higher, it will help in the baseline and budgeting for the 2018 Farm Bill. Neither North Dakota Corn or National Corn have come out as opposed or for this proposal. So successes of the ARC PLC program that we have seen. You were able to update your yields for the first time since 2002. A lot of counties moved their corn yields from 1986 at FSA from 50 bushels an acre up to 150 bushels an acre. A lot of farmers moved their wheat yields in southwest North Dakota from 20 bushels an acre to 40 bushels an acre. So that was a real big gain for, I believe, North Dakota farmers and nationally. Base updates. You were able to do a base update, but because of budgetary reasons, they limited you to your historic base level. So if you had 1,000 acres of base of cropland and 500 acres of base, a 50% base to cropland ratio, you were allowed to reset your base mix, but you're limited to that 50% of base to cropland ratio, even though you've been planting the whole 1,000 acres to program crops. So one of the negatives is that you were limited to the historic base of your farm. And I use the old Uncle Joe, young farmer picks up Uncle Joe's farm, and he was a dairy farmer back in the 70s and 80s and had about a 30% to base to cropland ratio, and now you're trying to live with that farm, planting it to corn, soybeans, wheat, canola, and you're living with those payments on 30% of your base. So that's an issue that we're going to try to attack in this next farm bill. Program decisions were by crop, by FSA farm, and again, a great educational effort by Extension, FSA, and the other commodity groups on the complexities of that program. Those were successes. Other successes, the money did flow. Nationally, in the U.S., the 2014 payouts issued in the fall of 2015 were $5.3 billion for ARC and PLC. Again, I remember I told you under the old direct payment, it was $4 billion a year, so you went over it in 2014. And North Dakota came just below at $192 million, that $200 million mark we had under direct payments from 1996 through 2013. The direct payments were around $200 million a year. In 2015, as those prices dropped, U.S. issued $7.8 billion of PLC and Ark County payments, as the last report I could find, and in North Dakota, $450 million. A lot of that money came from Ark County corn, Ark County PLC wheat, and PLC canola in the state of North Dakota. For 2016, these are my estimates from what I could gather around the interweb. U.S. Payouts would be $6 billion, North Dakota estimated at $420 million. I actually thought that at North Dakota in this fall of October for the 16 year would be quite a bit less, but then I pulled up Andy's report. Where are you at, Andy? You're saying around $300 million for wheat on PLC in Ark County, and I would have to agree you're probably pretty close. Canola's going to run at around $90 million again in the state of North Dakota. My corn guys aren't going to get a payment unless you put into PLC, unless you're in northeast North Dakota and you had some disaster hits. And soybeans, PLC in Ark County again, minimal to no payments unless you had some disaster hits up in your county. Again, a success is the fruit and vegetable provision got tweaked up in the Farm Bill where you can more easily plant dry edible beans and potatoes on a farm with base and not take a total reduction, a total kick out of the program. So those are deemed successes, in my opinion, for the last Farm Bill. So issues that we have learned about. Again, we talked about the limitation of the historic base when you did a base update. That's something that we would like to take another crack at least for beginning farmers and maybe for everybody. Yield update could not occur if your records were missing or not provided. So the example I would have is, we heard a lot of this at FSA. I picked up Frame's farm, who had it in 2013, and I picked it up in 2014, but I couldn't get his yield records to update yields. And that was a negative for the program. The 5-year lockup programs, personally, I never like to sit at FSA and see winners and losers when you had to make a program decision, especially for multiple years. In my opinion, to pay for it, change a payment factor, change something else so we can do an annual election and not have a 5-year lock of a program. Payments, 5-year lock-up program we talked, and then payments for Ark County, again, are projected to go lower in 2017 and 18 due to those multiple years of lower prices. Couple other issues, lateness of payments. Payments can't be made until 12-month marketing average prices, which can be a long way out. You know, again, you're going to get your 2016 payments in October for 2017 and December of 2017, depending on the crops that you grow in North Dakota. So that's quite a period of time to make up a difference of a revenue shortfall. And the big issue is how Ark County was run, the county yields. Again, we at Corn believe nationally in North Dakota that the yield cascade policy that FSA implemented, where they use NAS yields first and then RMA, needs a switch up. And we also believe that the NAS yields have come up short the last several years. Even during that effort we made in the last year between USDA and the commodity groups, and all of us participated in that, we only picked up a few more counties of corn for yields that got published this last spring, and similar to soybeans. So those are things that are issues we believe. So where's the North Dakota Corn Group? We did surveys with our farmers during our Farm Bill meetings and our Cornvention. Our guys and gals want to retain a strong and fully funded crop insurance program. We're still disappointed. We took a haircut on our prevent plant factor, and I would warn any other grower of any other commodity, watch out. RMA is looking at your prevent plant factors every year. Corn took a haircut of the 0.60 factor to 0.55 for the 17 year. And if there's 1 million acres of prevent plant in North Dakota in 2017, and there's 200,000 of corn prevent plant, that'll be about a $4 or $5 million loss in North Dakota. Again, that's my math, using some average yields and average percentages of coverage, and so that's a loss to our farmers in North Dakota. So again, the message I think all of us have had is watch crop insurance, watch your back. You know, they're going to keep nibbling at it, and that's one crop that got nibbled on. Trade. You know, the surveys in our state, and I just came back from a national trade meeting, almost every state in the United States, trade has moved up from a fourth or fifth high priority item to one or two nationally. And again, in our state, it was number 2 right behind crop insurance. So everybody's worried about trade and our trade relationships. For national corn and North Dakota corn, we're big believers in the MAP and FMD program, which runs around $200 million a year, where we give money to U.S. Grains, and they marry it up with Foreign Ag Service and help the trade business for our commodities, and it's had a heck of a return on investment. We would like to see an adjustment to the Ark County PLC program, specifically use of RMA data instead of NASS data as the #1 yield source for both benchmark and current year. We want to retain the RFS for ethanol and the ethanol levels of 15 billion gallons a year and get an RVP waiver so we can sell ethanol in the hot summer months around the United States. We're always looking for regulatory and oversight relief, specifically for you trying to manage your property out on your farmland. The wetland issue, managing your property rights, things like that we're watching for. And then lastly would be research funding, very important both in our state of North Dakota and nationally. So our wish list, in the 2018 Farm Bill. We'd like to see an updated base in yields using a new base period of 2014 through 2018, for example. And with that, how about not limit the base to the historic base total? You know, do a total update if you want to. Maybe a choice of what you have today and what the new calculation would be. At a minimum, we'd like to see base and yield update for beginning farmers, where they picked up the Uncle Joe dairy guy's farm sitting at 20%, 30% of base to cropland ratio. Let them guys update and or approve a yield if they couldn't before. We'd like to use RMA yield data for Ark County for benchmarks. That means a total redo of what you're seeing for Ark County now and for current year yields. We would like to include prevent plant acres in that Ark County current year yield calculations like USDA offered under the acre program, which was a state yield trigger under the 2008 Farm Bill. We lost that debate working with Senator Hoeven and Senator Heitkamp early in the 2014 Farm Bill policy decisions. And lastly, on Ark County, I did a lot of disaster programs for FSA, and part of that was we had a quality component in there where a county committee and state committee could agree to a factor if the wheat in Divide County nail was $2.50 a bushel because of high vom and scab, and the top price is $5. We have at FSA done a 50% quality factor, and why couldn't we put that into the equation for an Ark County formula? It's something that FSA and USDA has done before. Missing county data, whether it's from NASS or RMA, where we would like to see the Hoeven Amendment implemented, whereby, and it shouldn't happen, it shouldn't have to happen by law, it should be a policy decision, where the state committees are given authority that they deserve to adjust yields that are either missing or outliers. And in the fall of 2015, we thought we had that authority. With the former administration, all of a sudden they pulled the plug on it, and so we ended up with that Logan and Lemoore County problem with corn and a few other issues around the state and the country. So we would like to see state committees have more authority to look at these yields when they come out for Ark County. We'd like to see an annual program decision for Ark County and PLC, eliminate a multi-year lock. We would say, why not let you pick PLC or Ark County by your sales closing date for crop insurance in the spring by March 15th? Let you marry up your PLC or Ark County program by the time you take a crop insurance decision. And the last idea, and just kind of throwing mud against the wall, you know, could we combine Ark County and PLC and eliminate an election? Simply say, you get the best of a PLC payment or a county payment on your FSA farm. I know there's a few smart people in the room that could figure that one out, and it would be doable. Again, it would be costly, and so how do you pay for it? Right now, you get 85% of your base acres paid under Eric County PLC, and perhaps you need to take a little haircut, get it down to 80% or 75%. Some of you in the room farmed in the 1980s where your payment acres were 70 to 75% of base. And you had to set aside the other acres. You couldn't plant them to other crops. So those are just some ideas that we have at North Dakota Corn.